Stations on the eastern part of the United States go to local news. ABC News is staying right here.
Good evening, everybody. We begin as Americans. We are stunned tonight trying to cope and come to grips with the worst acts of terrorism in American history, and trying to figure out what to tell our children and how to go forward.
At this late hour, there are no firm casualty figures, but suffice to say there are thousands of people injured, perhaps dead. Right now, New York City police are investigating at least one truck which may be filled with explosives beneath the George Washington Bridge. We're going to talk to a Connecticut man about that in just a matter of a couple of moments. Let's begin tonight with a recap of the terrible events that have transpired throughout the day here. The scene from the very start was surreal. Two commercial airliners hijacked and flown into the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York City. You can see this incredible video. That was followed by another commercial plane which was also hijacked, crashing into the Pentagon. Then there was a fourth incident in which another hijacked commercial jet crashes near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The pilot of that plane may have purposely taken the jet into the ground to avoid blowing up another national landmark.
We have coverage all over our state tonight, and of course in the city of New York. We start tonight with Aaron Cox in Stamford. Aaron?
Well, Ann, there are fewer commuters getting off the train at this hour, but their faces look very similar to those who came back from New York this afternoon. The faces show shock, a little bit of fear, and understandably some real fatigue. Governor Rowland speaking, and we carried it live on News Channel 8 about within the hour from here at the Stamford train station. And he says while the state made the right choice today in closing down state office buildings, the governor says tomorrow Connecticut must put on a brave face and prepare to accept the possibility of casualties.
And so people should go back to work tomorrow. They should go to the schools. They should try in every way they can to resume normal activities, and perhaps pausing throughout the day to pray for those that have been lost.
Nighttime, and the commuters keep returning, relieved and shaken by what they have seen.
You can still see the smoke. It just looks like a big cloud.
Husbands relieved to return safely.
I'm glad to be here.
Mothers hugging daughters.
I'm just happy to be home.
It's good to have her back.
Commuters dazed, confused, some still in shock. Many with stories of a close call.
A lot of my colleagues might have been underneath that stuff walking to work. You know, that's prime commuting time. That's what I'm really concerned about. I could have been there had it been 5 minutes later. It's scary.
Governor Rowland says Connecticut's crews are really poised to get into action tomorrow to help in those search and rescue efforts in the rubble surrounding the Twin Towers in New York City. Ann and Keith, we have been here all day, and all day we have heard stories. We have seen tears. We have even seen some folks in torn clothing as they were able to get out of New York City. But the most inspiring story came just a few minutes ago from a woman who began her day in Washington, D.C. She got through that attack, then she went to New York City, and she got through that attack zone and finally made it back to Stamford, Connecticut. A mother here tonight, so glad to see her two young sons. Back to you.
Amazing stories all day.
All right, Aaron, thank you. As we've seen and noted throughout the day, the nation's airports were shut down in the wake of these two terrible attacks on the World Trade Centers.
The first time in U.S. history that no planes are flying in this country. Let's go live now to Bradley and Chris Velarde. Chris?
Well, guys, when you look up into the night sky tonight, it's a clear night, but you don't see any red or white blinking lights. It's something we've all grown accustomed to, but there are no planes flying anyway. Here at Bradley, no planes coming in, no planes coming out. It is eerily quiet. Of course, that means the terminal building is very dark tonight. There are very few people inside except for maybe a few airport and airline employees. And outside, state troopers are lined up around the perimeter of the terminal building. Today's attack has been described as many as a wake-up call, that the threat of terrorism is real. But a former security checkpoint supervisor who worked here at Bradley says it was his worst fears realized. It was only a matter of time.
Me, I won't fly. I'm very scared of flying.
Because of what you know?
Yes. Yes.
Brian Cuny knows security at airports can be beaten. As a former security checkpoint supervisor at Bradley, Cuny used to test employees and hand out too many failing grades. He says too often employees are poorly paid and poorly trained.
The people that they hire And this is going to affect the tickets, the price, and everything else. But they have to hire people more qualified, ex-police officers, correctional officers, firemen.
And CUNY says today's tragedy must lead to changes.
It takes away our freedom, little by little. Something like this is very, very big.
CUNY says during those tests he conducted, he was able to sneak in everything from hand grenades to handguns. He says it was just frightening what he was able to get through the security checkpoints at the airport. Now, are all security guards unqualified? Absolutely not. But he says some are, and any is too many. Now, the plan is for the airport to open again tomorrow, but that isn't up to anybody here at Bradley. That, of course, is up to the FAA. Again, the plan is tomorrow at noon, but we'll have to wait and see. Guys, back to you.
We will,
all right, Chris, thank you. All right, we've seen throughout the day thousands of people streaming from Manhattan on Metro North trains to Connecticut, Stamford, and then on to New Haven.
Let's go to Andrea Stasser now, live at Union Station in New Haven. Anything going on now, or just really quiet, Andrea?
Quiet right now, but throughout the night, Ann and Keith, there were several trains unloading with lots of dazed and confused people. The same situation here, as you heard from Erin down in Stamford. As you know, tunnels and bridges around New York closed all day long, so the train was really the only way out. But getting home was not the most difficult challenge for commuters. The most difficult part for those who were there near the World Trade Center comes now, coping with the horrendous events they saw unfold right in front of their eyes.
When you looked up and saw people falling out of the sky, I thought my life was over. That was it.
But Michelle Reeby somehow made it out alive, rushing down 36 flights of stairs and then watching helplessly as the Twin Towers crumbled before her eyes.
Shoes were all over the floor. People were jumping out of their offices, burning. Suits were burning on fire, flames everywhere.
Like several New Yorkers, Reeby felt a need to escape and boarded a train to Connecticut. After witnessing the most horrific sight of his life, this New Yorker took his kids out of school and left the city.
I saw the second plane go in the side of the North Tower, One World Trade, a huge ball of flames and smoke coming out. And at that point, I decided to leave the city.
Connecticut residents returned home to emotional embraces. Many family members incredibly relieved with the fate of loved ones.
She was running late this morning, so
she missed the whole
with her, yeah, so she missed it. So I'm just waiting for her to get home now.
As many arrived home, emergency workers headed towards the scene of overwhelming human tragedy, wondering if even the best training could prepare them for this call to duty.
They train us a lot. We see a lot of small-scale stuff, but this is something new.
Police were on high alert after the bomb squad investigated a suspicious package found on the platform. It turned out to be just a false alarm. Meantime, the Red Cross offered assistance to those traumatized by what they saw today.
Let them know that there's people here to help.
And those glued to television sets still can't believe what happened.
I know people that could be in those buildings. I don't know. It's close. It's just too close to home now.
A lot to take in for so many people. Now tonight, Metro North officials telling us they will resume their normal weekday scheduling tomorrow. Ann and Keith, back to you.
All right, Andrea, thank you.
All right, let's go live down to Lower Manhattan and our reporter, Alan Cohen. Alan, what can you tell us?
Keith, it is like a war zone, a scene of utter destruction. One New York City firefighter told us tonight rescue crews from New York, New England, Connecticut have descended on Lower Manhattan in hopes of saving those who are still trapped in the rubble, if they can.
As night fell on this most awful of days, police secured the area around the World Trade Center. It is, after all, the scene of a crime, as well as unspeakable grief. The men of Hook and Ladder Company 8 lost up to 200 of their brothers.
I don't think grown men don't cry either, because we're all crying.
It was around 9 a.m. when the first of the hijacked airliners slammed into Tower 1 at the World Trade Center.
I was on the 55th floor, about halfway up, and we heard a boom, and windows shook, and we saw some debris flying, and we bolted out of the office.
Andrew Gallagher escaped before the tower he was in was hit. By nightfall, weary rescue workers started getting help from states, including Connecticut.
Why did you come down here?
We were asked to by our divisional headquarters in Connecticut.
What do you hope to do?
Just support the other Salvation Army units. One of them is we've told is running out of gas. We topped off. We are full of coffee, donuts, food, sandwiches. We're going to go down. They're going to take off. When we run out of gas, they're going to come and just they're going to space us.
All the while, stunned New Yorkers watched with competing emotions.
I just can't believe it could happen here. I mean, you see it in another part of the country, but when it hits home, it's frightening.
New York City police stopped us on the street tonight and wanted to convey the following. They would like anybody in Connecticut who was in Lower Manhattan today who shot their own video or still pictures to call them. They would like to see what you have on your own videotape or your own pictures because they are looking for faces in the crowd. It may be critical to solving this case. Keith and Ann, back to you.
All right, Alan, thank you. All right, and we are beginning little by little to hear from eyewitnesses to this tragedy.
There's a man from Oxford today that got out of the city alive. Here is his emotional account.
I was on the 24th floor, and the first plane hit, and the building rocked to the right and back. And I opened the door of the conference room, and I saw the plane go by and people falling. It's all right, Dad. And then we started to go down the stairs, and we got down to about 16, and all the doors on the World Trade Center, they lock. So we got down to about probably about 15 or 13, 14, and I said, you know, there was just a traffic jam for people trying to get down. And I said, everybody back up, back up. Everyone was yelling, back up. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm all right. I just want to get home. I want to get you home.
And we went back up. I'm starting to calm down now. We went back up.
Do you want to stop for a sec?
No, I just want to go home. We went back up, we regrouped.
Brandy, where's the car, Brandy?
The firemen started coming through, and they let us down. Company 22 in New York City, freaking heroes. Not one of them had fear in their eye. They all just kept going up, and we got down to the bottom in the plaza. There was bodies everywhere. They were all on fire and broken. It was just the most horrific thing you've ever seen in your life. And then we got out, and I had a thing of oxygen in my hand and a fire extinguisher, and I must have carried it 3 blocks before I even realized I had it. And then I just bumped into this guy, and we just started walking, and we walked up from the Trade Center to 33rd Street, and everybody was lined up trying to hitchhike out of the tunnel. It was like, you know, and this guy pulled up in a pickup truck and drove me all the way to the ferry, and I got home. And I'm home now.
One harrowing account of what happened in Manhattan today, and Mr. Veskinza credits the members of Engine Company 22 of the New York City Fire Department for saving his life.
He got home. As we continue our coverage, we want to talk now to a professor at Quinnipiac University who has done research on how terrorists use the media and thrive on publicity. Professor, did they get what they wanted to today?
Yes, I don't think there's any question about that.
What is it that they're trying to accomplish? We right now are investigating reports that there is a van or a truck, perhaps 2 trucks full of explosives beneath the George Washington Bridge.
Well, again, one of the things I guess you don't want to do is you want to be sure that you're not reporting rumor, and I'm confident you're not. The purpose of the use of the media in these kinds of things is to promote fear amongst the people, to get you to reduce your own freedoms, and to get you to respond emotionally and kill people so that they can raise an army of people who hate you. It's worked in the Middle East. It's worked in a lot of parts of the world.
But clearly, Professor, the media, we have no choice but to cover the events that have unfolded here. So really, what option would the media have in a case like this?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear all of your question, but I must presume that I understand what you're saying. No, one of the freedoms they would like you to curtail is your freedom of the press. They would like you to deprive you of that. And I think that to the extent that you can do honest reporting in a horrible situation like this, which I think has been done for the most part.
All right, Mr. Russell Barkley of Quinnipiac University, we appreciate your time.
It's all right.
Thank you, sir.
As Alan Cohen told us in New York City tonight, the FBI is looking for your help. Any information that you may have is helpful. The Bureau has set up some tip lines for you.
That's right. We want to put the number on your screen right now. The FBI tip line, 1-866-483-5137. And also, we've got our website up there. You can connect via our website, of course, at WTNH.com. Now, we've been talking to you about a report of a truck filled with explosives near the George Washington Bridge. This is a story that has begun to unfold in the past 45 minutes or so.
Absolutely. I talked with Kevin Garrity of Madison just a few moments ago. Garrity had gone into the city with a friend to distribute thousands of flashlights from his company to rescue workers. You will hear Garrity talk first about learning of the new terrorist threat while he was on the Tri-Borough Bridge in New York. This was about 20 minutes ago.
Police officers approached us and asked us to leave the bridge. I asked them why, and as we were debating this, their superior came up in a police car, stopped real quick, and said, "Everybody off the bridge." We just pulled over 2 trucks with explosives headed towards the Meadowlands. You can picture snow being 3-4 inches deep. Well, that was soot and debris around us. It was worse than any movie that you've ever seen. We saw bodies being dragged out from the site as we were giving out flashlights, Garrity flashlights.
Just some of the stories that we're starting to hear.
Right, and also we do have some reports from New York that, again, 2 men in custody with a truckload of explosives, and one of the reports we were hearing was that they did have enough explosives in that truck to blow up the George Washington Bridge, but they were apprehended.
In Connecticut, police, firefighters, AMR personnel from Bridgeport, from that area, are setting up a triage center at the train station in that city in case injured people were taken in there.
What you're going to be doing. This is something you've been trained for, unfortunately. It's something that's here. And I just want to say thank you for everything you're doing. Don't worry about your loved ones. Just think of the people we're going to be caring for. Okay?
They're getting ready for whatever. Bridgeport Hospital, along with others across our state, are on high alert if they should be needed in this crisis.
And the Red Cross is in action at this hour following today's terrorist strikes. They need blood donors. Hundreds of people already turning out earlier today at the Branford Elks Club to help out.
And there are going to be many more blood drives across the state in the upcoming days and weeks. To schedule a time, you should call the Red Cross at the number on your screen, 1-800-HELP-NOW. Both the Red Cross and Salvation Army are accepting cash donations to help victims of these attacks. To donate to the Salvation Army, you can call 1-800-SAL-ARMY or log on to our website at WTNH.com for any more information.
Well, the number and types of injuries to the victims of today's attacks will undoubtedly be staggering. We've heard of 800 fatalities at the Pentagon alone today.
With all the dust and asbestos blanketing the Manhattan skies, one of the medical concerns involves respiratory and lung problems. We are joined now by Dr. Mark Siegel, Assistant Professor of Medicine at Yale University. Dr. Siegel, what can doctors and EMT personnel expect to encounter as they go into this area?
Well, there are several devastating respiratory effects from explosions like this one. You can count 4. The first is the thermal injury that would occur to people who are in the area of the explosion. They can get severe damage to the upper breathing passages and actually suffocate on that basis. The second thing is patients who are in the area of the flames and smoke can have a lack of oxygen and can also suffocate because of that. The third thing is that the fumes also include carbon monoxide and cyanide, and patients can essentially have their blood poisoned by what they breathe in. And then finally, over the next couple of days, we'll see the potentially devastating effects of the inhalation of a variety of toxic gases, which can cause injury to the breathing passages and to the air sacs.
Doctor, how long will it likely be before these gases and this dust dissipates from the air in lower Manhattan?
Well, I think the ones that I'm talking about have probably largely dissipated, at least in the area that people are right now. I think if you were to go into the building, it would be potentially possible to be exposed to these fumes. But I assume that the rescue workers have gas masks in that area. I think what we expect to see is the devastating effects on the lungs to the people in the vicinity over the next couple of days, and we're prepared to accept patients up here in Connecticut who can't be cared for down in New York.
All right, Dr. Mark Siegel, thank you very much for being with us tonight. As we continue our coverage tonight, we want to pass along a lot of information that we are getting slowly. It is expected that 3,000 National Guard troops will be on duty by tomorrow morning when the sun comes up. Cardinal Edward Egan, formerly of Bridgeport, who has administered last rites, says, and I am quoting now, that there are a great number of dead. So these are some of the things that we're getting from the Associated Press.
And there's been an outpouring of care and an outpouring of prayers as well. In New York, people are still seeing and feeling the effects of today's terrorist attack, as we've seen.
Connecticut neighbors' hearts and prayers are going out to all who are involved. Earlier this evening, residents showing up on the New Haven Green to get guidance and support from religious leaders from various city churches and synagogues. The rector at Trinity Episcopal Church says people are having problems coming to grips with this. He says many want payback.
The easiest and most primitive form of justice is retribution. We want an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But we know from history and from the Bible that doesn't end it. It simply plants the seed of the next evil.
Father Andrew Fiddler says it's important for those to share their feelings so they don't feel like they have to deal with the problems on their own.
Support one another in our efforts to cope.
And there was another memorial service. In fact, there have been a number around the state. This one was a vigil held at Yale University. More than 1,000 people in attendance for this, many of them students from Yale University. And as you can see, many brought along candles to show their caring for what has happened to so many people in so many spots around the country today.
And our prayers do go out. We don't even know the untold amounts that have died here, but you can imagine this is just the beginning of the scenes. Thousands are dead tonight, and we do not have a count yet.
All right, we want to break away from our coverage of this tragedy now to talk a little bit about the primary elections around the state today, and specifically in New Haven, where there was a very hotly contested primary battle today.
They canceled the primary today in New York City, and we have sports director Noah Finch here, who we have enlisted your duties to cover the primaries tonight.
Yeah, you know, the primaries were to be today's big story, and some think Connecticut should have done as New York did, and that is postpone them. Well, despite that, the primaries were held, and surprisingly, there was about average amount of turnout. There was another surprise, and that was in the race for New Haven mayor. What people thought would be a close one turned out to be not so close. Mayor John DeStefano easily regains the Democratic nomination, gaining 62% of the vote to 38% for challenger Martin Looney. DeStefano won the primary, but I'm not sure anyone feels like a winner today.
Not an easy day to celebrate, even for New Haven Mayor John DeStefano, who surprised some by running away with the Democratic nomination.
You're really conflicted. I mean, what happened in New York was awful. It affects families all over America.
When Connecticut's Secretary of State made the call to go ahead with the election today, it made it difficult for both candidates to finalize their campaigning on a day when obviously people had bigger issues on their minds.
We did the business of America while America was under attack today. And it was hard going to voters and saying, you know, we want you to come out to vote.
It certainly puts things in perspective. The extraordinary loss that the nation and the world suffered today puts everything else into what seems to be a sort of a fairly minor backward key.
DeStefano added that some solace can be found today knowing that our country, in the face of major distress, did what it does best, conduct business with a democratic election.
Both candidates attended a vigil on the New Haven Green earlier today, and clearly this morning's events were more on their minds than today's primary. And how could they be not?
All right.
How could anything be more important than that?
All right, Noah, thank you very much. I want to get you up to date on some other primaries around the state. In Waterbury, the race between three Democratic mayoral candidates said to be too close to call tonight. 23 votes separate State Representative Michael Jarjura and consultant Larry DiPillo. Ron Napoli trailed by more than 100 votes. So that's a very close race in the Brass City.
And in Hartford, Democrat Eddie Perez logging 4,400 votes, winning over Robert Ludgen.
And in Meriden, Democrat Joseph Meriden got 1,573 votes in tonight's primary compared to 1,533 for opponent Laura Gallo.
All right, so that's just a recap of some of the primaries around the state. We do want to say that some folks have been writing to us tonight saying, are yellow ribbons going to go up? Of course, we know that flags are flying at half-staff all across the nation at this hour. In fact, they started flying at half-staff right after the Twin Towers were hit. As far as yellow ribbons, there are many people who feel helpless, who feel that they need to show some kind of solidarity,
right.
and they are starting to do that around the state and around the nation.
And as far as we know, operations around the state are going to be as scheduled as much as possible tomorrow. Governor Rowland said that earlier. And as far as we know, schools are going to be open, and life is going to at least try to resume at somewhat of a normal basis, at least in those fronts.
And as we go to Jeff Fox, we also want to let you know, New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ will be closed tomorrow, and the American Stock Exchange. This is a tough day, Jeff.
Yeah, this is a really difficult day. I did get a call earlier, and I really should mention this, from a woman who said, you know, no planes are flying, and I saw something in the sky. And I should tell you that often, especially this time of year, in the hour about 1 hour after sunset for the next hour or two, you can often see satellites that are flying overhead that are illuminated by the sun, but not from the earth. So you really shouldn't be upset if you see something in the nighttime sky. It's undoubtedly not a plane tonight. Now let's take a look at the forecast, because it's pretty easy for the next day or so. Sunny skies for tomorrow with a high temperature which will be close to 80 degrees. Then on Thursday we'll build some clouds, a chance of late day thunderstorms Thursday afternoon, and then we get chillier as we move into Friday. Mid and upper 60s on Friday. On Saturday we'll have temperatures in the upper 60s, and about the same on Sunday as well. One more thing, and that is that Aaron continues to churn out into the Atlantic, and though that'll cause some problems on the eastern coast of Massachusetts, not too much here, though people who have boats in the eastern portion of the Sound especially should make sure that your moorings are correct, because there could be some choppy seas. Not terrible, but just a little chop in the Sound.
All right, Jeff.
Abbreviated weather tonight. Right. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All right, we want to again recap the horrific events of this day in New York City and Washington, D.C., and again outside of Pittsburgh. I don't know if we can roll some video now. Of course, this started shortly before 9 o'clock in the morning, when we had a couple of commercial planes hijacked, one from Logan International Airport, in fact a couple from Logan International Airport, slamming into the Twin Towers in Manhattan, one and then the other. Later on we saw both of the, and this, Ann, of course, is this terrible video
we
we've
all remember
seen
where we were when we saw tape of this morning.
Throughout the day, and then within the hour, both of the Twin Towers collapsed, and then we got word of another commercial plane that had crashed in the Pentagon, and then a short time later, yet another plane going down in the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. All told, all these commercial planes, all of them hijacked, all of them from either Boston, Logan, Dulles, or Newark, out to the West Coast.
It just has America stunned tonight, and we're all asking what next, but also as a nation and as a state, we come together and we work this out and we go forward. As we talked to you at the top of the show, they are still investigating what may be one truck, two trucks could be filled with explosives on the George Washington Bridge. We had a witness account of that by somebody on the Triborough Bridge to tell us that. So we don't know if this is over, and as we've said, we do not have a death toll. We do not have any names of any Connecticut residents that may be victims. Those will come in the next day, and we're all in this together. And
New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani has also said recently that there is some indication that there are some people that are perhaps still alive in the debris of the World Trade Center. So rescue crews will be working throughout the evening and into tomorrow down in New York City.
As the governor said, and countless others, just pray for the families and their victims. We thank you for joining us tonight.
All right, and of course, keep it here on News Channel 8 for any late-breaking details.
That I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above, from the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
They'd be lynched, it seems to me, almost immediately.
And it would certainly seem that